Yes, it seems like it's finally happening. Andretti is knocking on the entrance door of Formula 1, and now the governing body has finally decided to let him enter the fiercest and most elite competition in the world. After the FIA finally softened under Andretti's desperate cries to enter F1, the former F1 champion has already fixed the starting lineup as well. It's going to be an interesting period ahead of us, and 2024 couldn't come sooner if you ask us. Andretti has been one of the most vocal individuals and companies when it comes to entering F1. Their attempts to enter the sport have been ongoing for years, and according to Mario Andretti, a former F1 champion, his son Michael has already checked every box out of the FIA and is expected to be given the green light for entry. Just a couple of days ago, the FIA's president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, spoke about an expansion in the sport, and while many thought that he would side with Dominic Carli and say that new teams aren't a necessity, the contrary has happened. In a tweet, Mohammed said that the FIA is currently looking into an 11th team entering the sport, which would be truly a delight for the fans. In his tweet, the president of the FIA said, "I've asked my FIA team to look at launching an expressions of interest process for prospective new teams for the FIA F1 World Championship." Now, the start of a formal process could pave the way for an interested party such as Andretti to join the F1 grid in the future. But even if this sees the light of day, there would be a number of hurdles for any successful applicant to negotiate. One of the biggest hurdles that Andretti needs to overcome is the prize money, or more precisely, the amount of money that every team is going to receive at the end of the season. The agreement that stands as of now was written and agreed upon in 2016, when the popularity of the sport wasn't at its highest level and when the sport wasn't earning as much money. However, with an 11th team coming, team bosses like Steiner and Wolff believe that changes are needed to this business model as well. Furthermore, they believe that the $200 million fee that is asked of any new team when they enter the sport may not be enough when it comes to earning more than the sport is about to lose. According to Wolff, this fee is labelled a dilution fund, and it's being split between the other teams. But yet, Andretti has let the actions speak louder than words, with the company starting to build an enormous facility in Indiana that is worth around $200 million and is going to house all of the racing teams for Andretti Motorsports. As of now, the franchise does have high success in the IndyCar 500, and one of the drivers there, Colton Herta, is likely going to be the starting driver for Andretti F1 if they receive the green light to join the sport in 2024. This facility is going to be operational by 2025, and it also has a separate section for further potential projects, like the entrance in F1. Now that the popularity in the States has risen to such a level, one couldn't help but notice that this is going to be a true blessing for Formula 1 and for the revenue. With new investors and new money entering into the sport, the teams may not be so sad for them losing a piece of the cake after all, because this particular piece could grow a lot with Andretti entering the sport. Now, what are their next steps now that Andretti's arrival is almost certain? One of the major issues that Andretti needs to fix, and it seems like they've fixed it already, is the driver's lineup. As we mentioned earlier in this video, according to the team, Andretti will likely have Colton Herta as one starting driver and will seek to sign a veteran driver for the second starting seat as well. What goes in their favour is the fact that they have a very close and personal relationship with Fernando Alonso, who worked with Andretti during his Indianapolis 500 attempt back in 2017. This is something that was shared from both sides, with Andretti speaking about acquiring Alonso from Aston Martin, a team that has the Spaniard's signature for the next 3 seasons, further adding, "It's very possible, of course. His experience is immeasurable and it would be a tremendous thing for us, so we're going to look at it. I think he wants to keep racing and he's still in his prime." Imagine that you're Fernando Alonso, that you're 41 years old, and that 2 billionaires are fighting fiercely for your signature. Life couldn't get better, right? And on top of that, you've got a guaranteed $15 million per season with Aston Martin, so if Andretti wants to acquire your signature, they would definitely have to up their bidding. Aston Martin would definitely counter it, and Alonso can end up in 2024 with a bigger paycheck than he'd originally anticipated back in 2023. And on top of that, the Spaniard is very happy to see Andretti enter Formula 1, and when talking about this matter, he further added, "Well, sure, it could be a big thing, so we can have them in Formula 1, that will be the best news, I think, for both. Formula 1 would benefit from that, and obviously Michael and his team will benefit from the sport and from being in Formula 1. Now, everything is in the hands of the FIA, who seems to be taking the road that everybody wants them to take, and that's the allowance of the 11th team on the grid. After 2016, we've seen 10 teams on the grid, and it seems like now is the perfect time for an 11th team to enter the sport. However, it seems like Andretti will have some fierce competition, and if he isn't given the green light to join the sport in 2024, then the competition for this spot in 2026 will be more anticipated than ever. Calvin Lowe, a Chinese businessman who was involved with Williams and Doralton Capital, the primary company that bought out Williams in 2020, is one example. However, Calvin's appearance in Formula 1 was a bit overshadowed, and now that he's witnessed the possibilities of this magnificent sport, it seems like he'll be more than happy to start his own team come 2026. He's spoken about this matter, and he's further elaborated on the total amount of money that an individual or a company needs to invest in order to start up their own F1 team. Wolff was the first to give this proper estimation, saying that around $1 billion would be needed just to enter the sport and start from scratch, not to win races or titles at all. Lowe has agreed with this price, but also said that it wouldn't be a problem for him when it comes to it, as he's expressed very high interest in joining the sport in the near future. However, Lowe doesn't have the same level of support from Chinese fans as Andretti does from American fans. Although Haas is labelled as an American team, they're lacking what the USA-based fans love to see, which is an All-American or even one American in their starting lineup. Now that Sargent will be the first American driver after Alexander Rossi, who raced in 2015, the opportunities have opened up a lot for other American drivers as well, and it seems like Colton Herta will be the next one. All he needs to do in the remaining period is obtain the super license by participating in a couple of F1 practice sessions, similar to how Logan Sargent obtained it. But the F1 world does have a bit of a problem with drivers becoming full-time F1 participants while not participating in the lower categories, such as F3 and F2, which serve as a breeding ground for talent. With times having massively changed compared to just a couple of years ago, we are just witnesses to these changes, and we cannot help but notice how important this is for the sport. Whether it's Andretti or Calvin Lowe, the sport will likely experience an expansion, and it's for the greater good of it. If it's Andretti, it's a clear sign that F1 and the USA are no longer in the Cold War period that started in 2005, and that has been proven with Liberty Media taking over the media rights, and with 2 tracks in Miami and Las Vegas being added in just 2 seasons of time. With that, the North American continent will have 3 races from 2023 onwards, something that hasn't happened in the past. Hurdles have existed, and they will continue to exist, even for existing teams. But what is certain is that Formula 1 is moving in the right direction, and the fans are extremely happy about it. So, what do you think is next for Andretti and its entrance into Formula 1? Let us know in the comments down below.